Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Want to bet? Then get in on the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond, and March Madness is on deck. Bet pre-game, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Or in Ontario, download the app now using the QR code at the bottom of the screen. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game Over Ottawa. Maude and Charlie back with you once again, and unfortunately, no Sensing tonight. A couple of back-to-back losses now for the Sens, although against what I would say, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think it's kind of against the top two teams in the whole league in Boston and Carolina. Do you think that's correct in terms of Carolina being number two?
Yeah, I would say as far as probably in 2023, like they've been on, I don't remember when that like 11 game win streak was, but fairly recently, I think, right? So they've been like on a heater for a while now. I don't want to jump into things too quickly here, but yeah, like I guess kind of two scheduled losses, but like
It would have been awesome to get something out of one of them, right?
Yeah, I think both those games felt like avoidable, honestly. Just yeah.
That's the kind of surprising thing, that they both seemed like scheduled losses, and yet they were both close. Like, I think most people would have expected at least one of these games to end up being a blowout, and early in this one, it kind of looked like maybe it was trending in that direction, but at least we can say that it didn't end up being one of those rough ones tonight. Just more of a frustrating loss than one where you get, super angry or super depressed about how the team played, I think.
Yeah, I think if you remove the empty net goal and the first goal that we're going to get into this, but the first goal that probably shouldn't have counted. If you remove the empty netter and the first goal that shouldn't have counted, both the loss to Carolina and Boston were 2-goal losses where the power play goes over. So it just feels like you're against, arguably the two top teams in the league. It just makes you feel like there could have been something there, right? I looked it up, and I believe the Sens are now 0 for their last 10 on the power play. They went 0 for 5 against Carolina tonight. They went 0 for 3 against Boston, and I believe they didn't score on their last 2 power plays against St. Louis. The last goal on the power play was scored by DeBrincat and during that Blues game, and I think they've gone over 10 since then. So that is just, for a team that can't play 5-on-5, that is crippling.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat that the Sens are 2 for the last 20 or something like that on the power play, which sounds about right. And I think you said you mentioned the Blues game. I think probably both of those power play goals would have been in that game. Just gonna shout out Evan in the chat who says go Canes. You know what, just other than tonight, I will say go Canes too. I have to admit, it is a team that I really like watching. They have a lot of awesome players here on Carolina, and we were talking about that penalty kill. It was just absolutely suffocating the Sens tonight. Outside of that last power play in the third period with about like 10 minutes left or so, we just could not get anything going. Like, I noticed Carolina's penalty kill was super aggressive and just giving the Sens absolutely no time and space to set up plays.
Yeah, I think the I think the bias brain in my head just I couldn't give them credit this game. The whole time I was just like, the Sens suck, the Sens suck, the Sens suck. So yeah, no, I think you're right though. I think that at the very least was 50-50 on 4 power plays for the first 4 anyway, and Carolina being just a really solid defensive team. Can you imagine this if so? There are more and more reports that Carolina's like in the final 3 teams fighting for Timo Meier.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this fucking team? And I think this is the first of 3 games between the Sens and Hurricanes this season.
Yeah, we haven't even played them until now.
Start. So
that's rough. Oh my god, I didn't realize.
That is terrifying. First of all, oh my god.
If you add Timo Meyer to this team, like I would say the one thing that they're missing is like a pure goal scorer, because Svechnikov is kind of there as a goal scorer, but he's not like automatic for 30 or 40 goals. If you add Timo Meyer, that's got to be the missing piece, right?
Yeah. And for the sake of my fantasy team that is fighting for first place right now, I hope he gets moved to the Hurricanes. That would help.
That would
help.
probably be a huge boost. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know we talked a lot about how great the Sens top six was coming into the season. You add Meyer, like I'd put that Hurricanes top six with Meyer against anybody.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
That is
probably
terrifying.
it would probably be that top six, I would say, and then versus Toronto with adding O'Reilly. If they keep him in the top six anyway, he might move down to the third line or whatever. But these teams loading up, like potentially Carolina, and then we had Boston as well with the big trade yesterday. It's
Boston, who is loading up.
Yeah, and they might not even be done yet. It's crazy.
That's the thing with I was kind of surprised because like when you're that much better than everyone else, are you not a little scared to maybe mess that up?
Yeah, on one hand, it feels like your season is going so perfectly that do you want to mess with anything, right? It's funny.
Yeah. Good problem to have.
I guess throwing it back to this game a little bit, I think one of the main things that we will have to talk about is that first goal that was somehow allowed. We were texting a little bit during the game, and you had said at first that you weren't so sure about it. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, no, on the other angle, DeBrincat played the puck and Jarvis just fell. So that's a play where I feel like the ref, regardless of what the ref thinks, I think you see a dude in the net, the call on the ice is going to be no goal, and then you know that the scoring team is going to challenge, and then you deal with it then. So, I mean, so I don't know if you noticed this. I don't think I noticed DJ Smith looking at a replay. Like I don't think they looked at
I don't think so.
any footage on the bench.
They were.
How is that when you decide to put the iPads away?
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk was talking to the officials, and then after that conversation, then they went and talked to DJ Smith. I guess relayed whatever they discussed there, and I wonder if maybe whatever they said swayed him maybe to not challenge. But I don't know. You think, and don't they have the eye in the sky as well, saying like, "Hey, you should challenge this"? Isn't that a position that like every team has?
Yeah, and like, listen, it's the biggest. Frankly, it's the biggest game the Sens have played in years. Probably the most important game DJ Smith has ever coached in the NHL. How do you not just throw out a challenge? If it's worth arguing over from the bench, like you'd think, I don't know. There must be a reason. I don't know if it's a good one, but there has to be some reason that there was no challenge on that. That felt like a no-brainer challenge. Because you'd think as soon as they take a look at it, they go, oh, no, the dude just fell.
Yeah,
and just sat in the crease in the net for 5 seconds without moving an inch.
He did not want to move. He was content to just take a little rest inside the crease. It was very goofy. I totally agree about the lack of a challenge. But what is really weird to me is that was even called a goal on the ice in the first place. I feel like it's a little bit rare because they kind of rely on the challenges now, but there still is something within the rules where the ref can call no goal on the ice, and he can say there's no goal due to what do they say, incidental contact with the goalie, and then there's also no penalty either because it's not really the defender's fault and it's kind of fluke by the forward, but it wasn't fair on the goalie, right? So I was shocked that didn't end up being the original call.
And then 2 minutes later, no call on who was it? Was it Greg that got boarded?
A couple minutes later.
Just no call. Like what was that? 2 minutes later, if that. So I don't know. I think not that I think there's some big conspiracy against the Sens, because frankly, I think outside of our fan base, not a whole lot of people think about the Sens. But like, that was just when you're 5 minutes into a game and you're like, oh, this is it. Like
Yeah.
this is a lost cause. That on two plays that were called incorrectly. That's absolutely frustrating. And it's not like the Sens were really dominated for the whole game. That's like going back to what I said earlier about how this and the Boston game both felt like missed opportunities because neither team they were playing were at their best.
Mm-hmm.
So you take the Sens and put them like if you know if the Sens weren't on this just 0 streak on the power play, if the power play was clicking and the team looked, even just mediocre 5-on-5, like that could be a couple wins against top teams.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And then we're looking at the next 3 games against Montreal and Detroit twice as just like easy points. And instead of do or die, you win only one of these 3 games, the playoffs are it's out of reach. So yeah, just kind of bummed about missed opportunities against teams not playing their best.
Yeah, and just the last thing on those calls in the first period too. I feel like I shouldn't make excuses for the Sens because they did get dominated in that period, but I do also think that if that first goal doesn't count, they probably don't get deflated as quickly, and
Yeah.
that penalty, if you call that penalty right after, or even if the goal counts and then you call that penalty after, even though our power play wasn't great tonight, that shifts a little bit of momentum away from Carolina, at least for a couple minutes. So I feel like questionable calls kind of set us back in the beginning of the game here. But at least 2-0 lead is not insurmountable, and just for the rest of the game, they just could not score. Eh? Like, this team has got to have like the worst shooting percentage in NHL history, I swear.
It's brutal. DeBrincat's shot off the glove, off the post. Giroux looked like he should have scored about 4 in the third period. Like I think it's just I don't know what it is. DeBrincat's been all season long, but it looks like it's contagious at this point that the whole team couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then after controlling play for a good, I don't know how long, a good chunk of time, they give the Hurricanes an inch and they friggin' score on their first chance back. So just complete, like, it just like the most demoralizing game of the season, I think. Just I don't even know how to like describe the feeling.
I think it's got to be. Oh, okay. I was about to say it's been the most demoralizing game since that losing streak in November. However, I do know that there were some games that I wasn't doing the show for, and I kind of just tuned out or wasn't really watching because there was like that 7-0 loss to Colorado. I remember that one too. I'm sure you probably had a similar feeling after that one.
That one, the blown lead against Chicago.
Yeah,
that was rough.
That's another one I didn't have to do.
Just even in the past month, I get that everyone is pointing out the fact that the Sens do have a playoff worthy record following that whatever it was 4-9-1 start or whatever it was to start the season. But there's still those just inexcusable dog shit performances just sprinkled in with like that kind of big area that everyone's pointing out as good. 8-4 loss to Seattle, 7-0 to Colorado. That you're up 3-1 with 10 minutes left in the game against Chicago and you blow it. One of those goals being shorthanded. Yeah.
Speaking of that Chicago game, blowing that lead is even more painful now, considering we weren't able to scrape out any points against Boston or Carolina. Like, I was trying to be optimistic and I'm like, okay, we blow that 1 point against Chicago, but if we can get to OT at least in one of the next 2 games, especially because these were kind of looked at as scheduled losses, that would kind of even it out. But only 1 goal scored in the last 2 games. I mean, what are you gonna do?
And like, so on that, the Sens got goalied because they really didn't. But Antti Raanta is one of the weirdest goalies this season because the dude save percentage is barely better than Talbot's, but he's got like a 15-2 and something record, and he's got 4 shutouts. I don't know what's going on. I didn't
realize 4 shutouts as well. If you have 4 shutouts and a 900 save percentage, you gotta have some absolutely ass games in there too. Like, just up and
I
down
gotta
for him
double
there.
check this info here.
I had noticed as well
Uh,
that Frederick Anderson is similar, that he has a really good record, but his save percentage is down a little bit. So that's a little bit funny that both of their main goalies are like that.
I guess this shutout boosts his save. So he's up to a 908, but going into this game, I
I
think it
think it
was like a
was,
905.
yeah, it was somewhere between 900 and 905.
Yeah, so
I have to say as well, just to vent about fantasy hockey, I was looking earlier in the week like, oh, I should pick him up because he's going to play either Ottawa or Anaheim on a back to back. And then I didn't do it like before today, and then someone beat me to it, and I was like, damn it, I knew. And then he ends up playing the Sens, so pure disappointment with that one. I should have grabbed him, and at least I could gloat about getting that shutout point.
speaking of goalies that make the Sens sad, I'm Logan Thompson's on IR, so I'm now thinking about picking up Philip Gustafson. I
Dude,
might.
I first of all, I'm surprised no one has grabbed him yet in your league, and second of all, I'm against him this week and he's killing me. Just
Oof.
making me so sad. At least the Leafs did beat him tonight, but only 2-1, so he still did really well. And then the other night against the Kings, they had scored with 30 seconds left on him, so he almost had a shutout. He was just absolutely scaring the crap out of me with his insane goalie stats. But yeah, Speaking of Philip Gustafson, I'm gonna pivot that a little bit to Cam Talbot. I think he was pretty good tonight, but with the trade deadline looming, are you thinking that you would want to keep Talbot or sell him at this point?
I think it depends on how optimistic management is. If they see this as a done season, no chance of playoffs, fuck it, run with the rookies in net. Just honestly, I don't hate that idea either because I don't think you really want, like, I think in an ideal scenario, Talbot isn't back next season. So maybe just run with these two rookies and see which one you're thinking, okay, this is the backup for Forsberg next season. But knowing that Forsberg's probably out for the whole season, I don't know, like optics wise, I don't know if they want to do that. Like outside of just pure like on ice performance, I don't know if someone's going to say like, hey, maybe don't run two rookie goalies for the rest of the season. I think like if you're just going purely get as many assets as you can and sell, because like in my opinion, I think the Sens should sell unless they're making a move for someone who's under contract for several years. So if you're, and to be fair to the Sens, like this is the first time in a long time that I'm like, I want the team to sell, but there's like 8 forwards and 3 defensemen that I don't want to move, which is a
Mm-hmm.
great progression from just a few years ago. But yeah, no, I think if for whatever reason someone's offering you like a 3rd round pick for Talbot, just do it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I have to say, selling Talbot off for like a mid-round pick so soon after the Gustafson trade and how he's doing so good, like it's gonna look ugly. Like if you could keep Talbot around and extend him for cheap for like 1 or 2 years, and then maybe he has a good season, and maybe he's useful next year with the team potentially making the playoffs or moving up in the standings. Maybe that could salvage it a little bit, but it's looking rough right now. I feel like that was a trade that I was pretty happy with when it happened in the summer, but
Yeah, me
I
too.
I think Talbot's performance has been up and down enough that I wouldn't be disappointed if he was moved. Like I would be fine with it. I would only be disappointed in terms of whatever you get for Talbot is basically you got that pick for Gustafson at that point. Uh, it's a tough one.
Yeah, and I don't know what the easier fix is between getting better goaltending that can handle this rough defense or just upgrade the defense, then any goalie is going to look good.
Hmm.
Because I feel like you leave Talbot on the Wild and Gustafson's playing 30, 40 games for the Sens this year, like their stats are going to be nowhere near the same.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to honestly, I don't know what the right move is or how to value what Talbot hypothetically brings in the future.
Hmm.
Um, because he is getting up there in age. But like, say you sign him for 2 years at like what, two and a half per, you could find some value out of that, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
I think so. I
But
think
then you just,
if you
I
can
feel like
keep
you
him as a
need to like
cheap
really hope
contract,
that Forsberg's good for 55 games
yeah.
with him getting older. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think if I had to make a prediction on whether or not they'll move him, I can't say one way or the other yet, but I will qualify it and say that if we basically win the next 3 games, they're keeping him and trying to make the playoffs. But if we
Hmm.
go 0-3 or 1-2, just move him.
It really sucks that we've reached the point where the whole season rides on these 3 games.
Yeah, against
And
Montreal too. Like if
yeah, one of
it
those
will
Montreal, like,
sting if we lose that game, especially just because it's a rivalry game and they're
yeah,
not
and
good.
and yeah, is Detroit still in the playoff spot right now? Because
I
they
think
hopped
so.
to the wild card
They
spot, what,
moved
last
up.
night?
They moved up. I know Buffalo won as well. So okay, so Buffalo has tied them now, and it's like
Wow.
Buffalo has a couple more regulation overtime wins, but other than that, exact same points and exact same games played. So they're right there.
I'm used to it being a Blue Jays fan. Um, but the entire division, other than Montreal not sucking, is so rough for
Mm-hmm.
the Sens team that was supposed to make a step, because it just so happens that everyone else did too. Because like the top of the division, you have what, the Leafs are in third and they're like fourth in the NHL.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have Buffalo and Detroit and Florida kind of still in it, all above Ottawa too. Like it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I honestly, even with the next 3 games being wins, like it's just such a tough ask to get into the playoffs. Um, and it's I don't know. The elite team stayed elite, and all the other teams took a step, and
Yep. Detroit and
that's
Buffalo
just,
taking those steps a little bit more than the Sens has been the main thing. Uh,
yeah.
I wouldn't say unexpected, but that's we had hoped to be right there with them, and we're lagging a little bit behind both of them at this point.
Yeah, I thought the Sens would be the best team in the East outside the playoffs, so I didn't have super high expectations going in, as far as making the playoffs. But I at least thought they'd be a few spots higher. Like I thought missing the playoffs would be a little bit more heartbreaking and close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is weird to say because I think just not being anywhere near it is actually a tougher time for me. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, in terms of whether we'll get any closer to a playoff spot, I want to shift the discussion as a little bit back to the trade deadline again. We had that Zaitsev deal that happened a couple nights ago that we haven't had a show since then, so I think we got to touch on that. And in terms of like, are the Sens buyers or sellers? You could say that moving Zaitsev is like addition by subtraction. So is it a selling move or like it's? But really, what it is buying cap space, right? And then as
Yeah.
soon as that happened, then everyone is wondering, is that buying cap space for right now at the deadline, or is it just planning for the future? And there's kind of been conflicting reports from all the insiders on this, whether or not Dorian is really thinking of doing something right away. Uh, do you think he's going to bring in some salary at the deadline here?
I think I don't know how much he wants to base that off these next few games. Like if he's just kind of holding off until at the very least tomorrow's game. Um, I don't know. From what we're hearing, it's going to be someone with term, right? So maybe it has nothing to do with these next few games. It doesn't sound like there's been any, like I don't think any of the names being brought up have been like pure rental pieces on expiring deals, other than I
Mm-hmm.
guess Uyghur. But I think Uyghur was brought up when the Sens had, maybe fewer points and more games in hand,
He
back of the playoff
he
spot.
actually
So,
got a 8-year extension from Calgary.
oh, did he?
Yes, which is even weirder that he's in trade rumors now. Like they gave him that extension, and then
Oh,
all of a
okay.
sudden
I
it's
missed that, I
like,
guess.
yeah, all of a sudden it's like, are
Um,
they going to move him right after signing him?
well, I'll take that 8-year deal over Pareko.
Yes, yes, I totally agree on that. I was going to ask you about that.
I don't want Parayko. I don't want
Mm-mm.
Dumba.
Mm-mm.
Just like, you know what? Fuck it. Just put something together for Chikrin and hope
Yeah.
for the best next year. Like, because it sounds like Edmonton isn't going after Chikrin too hard.
Yeah,
But
Ken Holland's
I'm also like
weird
seeing reports
whether
that
he
they aren't
wants to
really
buy
going
or
for
not.
Carlson either.
Yeah, I
So
don't know what they're doing over there. I just see Oilers fans constantly being mad anytime there's any quotes from the GM about being kind of cautious about buying, which I
yeah.
totally get.
Yeah, was it Ken Holland said is like you can't like you can't go for it every year.
Something like that.
Have you looked at this Oilers roster? You go for it every
Hmm.
year.
Especially with the year Carlson is having, if you can find any way to bring him in,
Oh
you have
yeah.
to.
So I don't know who. So first of all, that Zaitsev deal, I'm for it. I
Yeah,
like it
I think everyone
as
is.
long as you use that cap space well.
Can't replace him with another
Um,
deal that we're looking to get rid of, like that one.
yeah, a second round pick for a season and a half of 4.5 mil cap hit is expensive. Um, so I think that just shows like how, and yet like that. So that 3-team trade where Boston got Orlov at 25% because Minnesota held on to 25%. They only got what they got like a mid-round pick, didn't they? They got like a fourth or something.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, Orlov was making, I don't even remember how much Orlov was making, but like that's like what, at least a mil and a half
Way
for a
down there.
fourth. So, which
Just
is
for
weird
dead
because you
cap.
wouldn't think that's a deal Minnesota makes, like a team going for a playoff run.
I guess they're not
I
going
don't
to
know.
be
I
big
don't get that
buyers.
either. Yeah. Um,
I think
who do
one
you
thing I
want the Sens to
wonder,
move anyone
what's that?
specifically? Do you want the Sens to move anyone specifically?
Uh, Probably Watson, just because, like,
That's addition by subtraction right there.
exactly. I would say that I wouldn't think that anyone wants him, but Bruce Garrioch had been talking about teams actually being interested in him for some reason. They are, so get him out of here at this point. Like,
You can't win playoff games without sandpaper and poorly timed penalties, I guess.
yeah. At least if you're gonna have sandpaper, it's got to be like a Garnet Hathaway, like Boston picked up. It can't be a guy who can't even keep up out there anymore.
I'm so mad. Like that's such a good trade.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a good trade. Oh, like a genuine top 4D in Orlov, great depth in Hathaway, and you give up the 30th to 32nd overall pick, and then like just a second and Magic Beans. Like it's not fair. It's not fucking fair.
Yeah, like
Oh,
speaking of Boston, Danny in the chat, he mentioned something that I was considering bringing up is tonight and the last game as well against Boston. It's showing how we're getting close to the playoffs, but when you see us going against those top teams, it kind of shows the skill gap, right? Like he said, we got a taste of what it would be like if we got into the first round against either of these two teams. You would be playing Boston or Carolina, and like, would we win a game against either of these teams in the playoffs? Like, I don't think so. Obviously, it would be a great achievement to get in, but this is the type of thing where that's why I don't want to see Dorian buying at the deadline at all. Like you said, unless it's a player with term, just because we would get smoked in the first round. Like, I would be very happy if we get in the first round, but I wouldn't expect us to win a game. We just saw how good these top teams in the Eastern Conference are in over these last two games,
yeah.
and I don't think any team that gets into the wild card, I don't think there's really any chance of an upset.
Yeah, like I like the idea of making the playoffs just to be able to say like, holy fuck, okay, my favorite team made the playoffs finally.
Mm-hmm.
But like if the plan either way is shipping out a bunch of players or like a bunch of picks, there's a package for hopefully like a quality defenseman signed for a bit. As long as it's as long as it's a protected first round pick that they're shipping out, whether they lose the 13th overall pick or the 16th, I don't really give a shit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think the only difference that makes is maybe that first round pick that you're trading away. If it listen, if Dorian's going to be buying regardless, fine. Um, But yeah, there. So I don't really know if there's, I don't know if there's really going to be any negative to making the playoffs. I don't want to spin
No, I
this
don't think
like,
so.
I don't want to spin it like the Leafs. Like, no, it's a good thing they lost in the first round. Um, but like, I don't know. In a season with obviously not no expectations, but a season with low expectations, it'd be nice to get, even if it's just 4 games, it'd be nice to get Brady Kachuk 4 playoff games, and
And they can get a
just
taste, you know. I
yeah,
I definitely agree with what you're saying, and there's obviously no downside to making the playoffs, but I'm kind of taking the angle of, even though we're within striking distance, it's definitely not the year to make a swing at the deadline for a rental to try to get in, because you will just get whooped by these top seeds anyway. So
yeah,
even though I
yeah.
still
Just
really want to
with
make the playoffs.
yeah, with the talent at the top of the Eastern Conference specifically, like these first rounds, um, as far as the wild card rounds against the division winners, it's shaping up. It's shaping up to look a lot like an OHL first round. You know what I mean? Like, the
Oh
OHL
yeah,
first rounds are so
those are
lopsided
bloodbaths.
because there's only 2 teams in each conference that don't make the playoffs. And just with the talent at the top of these divisions, in the East specifically, the West kind of sucks in general.
Mm-hmm.
But in the East specifically, whoever those 2 wildcard teams are, it just feels like it's going to be a 1v8 in the OHL type of series for both of them. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be, if either one of Boston or Carolina gets an upset against them, like,
It
I
would be
mean,
shocking if either of them
it'd be
lose in the first
shocking.
round.
I think it's less shocking after the Columbus Tampa
That's
a
true.
few years back, but still, like, these teams look unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, just to add that on to the fact that yeah, if the Sens do make it, they're getting friggin' smoked. So it's not that heartbreaking if they don't make the playoffs. It's not like they're going to go on a run. There's just too much talent in the Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, probably for the next 4 or 5 years. Like I remember what, late 2000s, early 2010s, it was so lopsided towards the West as far as talent goes. And I think we've officially reached that like kind of 5 year
Yeah, it's swung back the
um
other way.
band there. Yeah. So the East is going to suck for the next little while, which is just awful, awful timing
Mm-hmm.
for the Sens.
Yeah. I think we're going to wrap it up shortly here, but I'm just going to shout out one more comment from the chat. Jack says, despite the loss tonight, he feels pretty optimistic. The Sens, 5 of the next 6 games are winnable. You got the Habs, the Wings twice, and then I didn't realize as well that after that we got the Blue Jackets and then the Hawks. Although we did lose to the Hawks, is the one thing that I will say about that. Hopefully they've traded away Patrick Kane by then, eh?
And Lafferty and
Yeah,
McCabe.
get him out of there too.
Let's just
Domi,
clear
he
it
could
all
go
out,
too.
please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just let us have that one next
Yeah.
time. So yeah, even though it's a little bit disappointing the last 2 games, we just wanted exciting games at the end of the season this year. I think for the most part with the fan base, like most people were expecting close to playoffs, but not quite. So if we can at least go on a good run against these kind of teams that we should beat here, I think we could still be having some fun watching the Sens down the stretch.
Yeah, and even if we're looking at like the lowest possible amount of enjoyment anyway, we are at the very end of February and the games matter. So that's a win,
Mm-hmm.
I think, as
Yeah.
far as the last few seasons go compared to this. So we've got that at least.
Last year it was done in November, and we didn't even get
Yep.
close to like 500 like at all. So huge improvement, even though we may be still slightly disappointed. Can't be too mad overall, I think. But I think that's where we're going to leave it here tonight. Subscribe to STPN, leave a like on the stream if you enjoyed it, and we'll be back tomorrow for the game against Montreal. Hopefully not as dejected as we were here today. If we lose that game, oh boy, it's gonna be quite a show.
It's gonna be the most pissed off stream in the history of Game Over,
Yeah,
which might be saying it's just saying something, I think. Like
yeah. There's
we've
been
seen
some
a lot of
doozies.
really rough streams across all the teams this
Yep.
season, so it'll just be us sitting here quietly just brooding.
Just shaking with rage. I think it was
Yeah.
the last game before the All-Star break when we almost blew it against the Habs. I was ready to come on here just absolutely seething, but we managed to barely pull out a win in that one. So I hope it's not as close of a game. I'll put it that way. But
5-0, please.
yes, please, another repeat of the 5-0 game against Montreal. We will take that. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave it tonight. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Have a good night.
See you next time.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.